Thank you very much, fellow Africans, and welcome to today's episode of the Change for African campaign. It's on Monday. A happy new week. On Monday, as usual, we tackle our first pillar of the Change for African campaign, which is all about governance. And so, fellow Africans, as usual of recent, we have been doing comparing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to our 5 pillars of the Change for African campaign. And being on Monday about governance, today I'll be comparing United Nations Sustainable Goal number 16.4. That is meaning that we are dealing with target 16.4 of the UNSDG Goal number 16, which is all about that by 2030 we should have a significant reduction in illicit financial and flows, strengthen the recovery and the return of stolen assets, combat all forms of organized crimes. That is what we'll be discussing about today, and our first pillar of the Change for African campaign, this being our 81st episode. We have 19 to go after we are done with today's episode. So, fellow Africans, one of the key areas we're going to look at when it comes to this key target number 16.4, we are going to deal with something we have 3 things, IFFS, which is all about illicit financial flows, whereby this is money that is illegally transferred or used, often through corruption, tax evasion, and smuggling, and so many things that comes with such illegalities. And also number 2, we'll be dealing with illegal arms trade. That is, that is a usual business in Africa. That is what is that is what is on a very heavy toll in Africa. The illicit arms trade. It is happening in Africa. Why? When you want to know, there is a very high such kind of business. Sorry, we look at the current state of how Africa is doing in terms of security purposes. Many of the African continents, but many of the African regions in Africa are facing a very hard times when it comes to wars. Wars are everywhere in Africa today. Look at the Sahel region. Look at what is happening in these places. So wars are here day and night, and it is because the facilitators of this war have something they are getting. And before they become the facilitators, it means they have some people they are working with in the African continent, and these people are helping them to get people from in these countries, and then the foreigners actually sell these firearms to these illegal gangs that are used to now doing what you call the insecurity things are happening now in Africa. It is just because some of the foreign countries in the world are taking advantage of the key African resources. And they take advantage of this because we have some people who have the insatiable greed. The insatiable greed has taken a heavy toll also on many of the African leaders. So they do this to their own prerogative, So they're doing this to make sure that they're ones who are benefiting. And people are shedding blood. Blood is being shed just because of some few individuals. That is one of the illicit arms trade. These arms are being traded in Africa, and they're doing that to do they are causing death of people, they are causing displacement of people, and people are dying, which is a very terrible situation in Africa. That is one of the key areas of focus. And also the stolen asset recovery. This is also an issue whereby many of the African people, this one is it's a global thing, but then looking at this in the African context, we realize that in Africa it causes, or it appears very painful. It's very painful in Africa because we have people who really severely suffer just because of some of individuals. So speaking about stolen asset recovery, it's whereby some of these leaders in these African countries have actually participated in the things to do with fraud and all things of corruption. Now, after they have participated in such things, they end up taking this money to maybe offshore accounts, and then it becomes very difficult for maybe now we have a new revolution coming in Africa, whereby you want to see a youthful population whereby they will be taking over. So it will be somehow very hard for them to be able to trace back these stolen assets, because of some individuals who are there before. People with insatiable greed have taken a heavy toll when it comes to stealing of the African resources. That is another thing. And then also fighting organized crimes. This is now is related to the illegal arms trade, about the army, because these are people now. These crimes are using now these arms to be able to terrorize, and then they are given some small amount, and the other resources of Africa are exported to other countries illegally. That is another thing we should be focusing on as an African continent. And also, in that context, the African context is that Africa actually loses $88 billion annually due to, related to the illicit financial flows, and this one is a report as a result of the UNCTAD. So these are some of the things that we need to having that focus on, and this report produced in 2020 they need to be dealing with. And also we have the uncontrolled arms, whereby civil wars, terrorism, security in regions like the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, and also the Great Lakes are also experiencing the uncontrolled arms, whereby now people are using these arms to cause this terrorism here, and it's because they're after some things, and it's because people in these countries, you can see how unpatriotic people are. They are using the advantage of these people to their own prerogative, because these are people they are benefiting much, because they are going to make sure they displace people, they steal things, and then now they become it is to their own benefit, instead of having a whole society that is well settled. And it's also a problem of governance, because people in the governance systems, many in the African countries, are using their positions to be able to facilitate such operations. So these are things that we need to be discussing so much in Africa, because in our current status as an African continent, we do face this. And these are things that are making Africa to still lag behind. It's because of the governance systems in Africa. So once we are able to sort the issue of governance, because remember, for people to be able to take advantage of a country and also do the illicit arms trade, we have what we call this asset recovery. Because why are the foreign countries that many African leaders, that have been in power for so long, they take advantage of the resources of the African people, and then they take to those countries? Why can't those countries just know that this one is illegal? If people want to invest, let them invest in their own countries. If that money is clean, let it be here. But it's because the money they are taking there isn't clean. This money obtained from sources of corruption, so they cannot be able to retain it here. They take it to the offshore accounts. So those countries that are receiving this money to their banks should also be, if they are really, because these are global, this is a global thing. So if this goal is really to be achieved, also the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, that goal number 16 and the target number 16.4 has to be looked into, making sure that there should be a law that nobody is going to, they have to explain, it has to be the public domain, that from where this guy, from a particular country that this guy is. Now people have to know from the country that how did this guy obtain this money to put in the offshore account. These are things that are disturbing Africa. So we need to be very certain on how we are going to deal with such issues, because Africa is in calamity. Africa is going through a lot that we need to be speaking about. Remember, this is our 81st episode, meaning we are only having 19 episodes to go, and after 19 episodes of speaking, that is the practicability part of it. Now we are going to see how we can practically do this thing, and that is what we are aiming at, and we are very determined to make sure that Africa is a great continent. We have new revolutionaries in Africa, and young people are rising in Africa, people who understand what Africa should be doing currently, people who understand that where Africa is not the right state of Africa. As a fellow Africans, allow me to end at that point. Let's meet tomorrow to discuss about our second period of the Change for African campaign, all about the potential that we have as an African continent. Thank you and have a great evening. Thank you.